channel and to our usual Friday afternoon evening Q&A where you can get all of your questions answered by a historian about any particular historical topic, dropping a comment, question, or topic in the chat, and leading to obviously a very, very good conversation and some good vibes and everything. Start your weekend off right here at the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. Join me as we look at the history of any particular topic that you bring up, questions that you have about history or social sciences that you've never been able to get answered before. Drop them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer them. Please like and subscribe to become a Friendly Neighborhood Historian. I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas and is celebrating the entire Christmas season, which I think technically lasts for about 2 weeks. The 12 days of Christmas are that for a reason. They start on Christmas Eve and go all the way to January 6th, which is supposedly when the three wise men appeared before Jesus and Mary. So I hope everybody had a really incredible and wonderful Christmas. Today is Boxing Day, a popular holiday celebrated in Canada and the UK, which celebrates the returning of gifts, eating leftovers from Christmas, and a lot of sporting events usually held in the UK, Australia, New Zealand. It's a very Angloid popular holiday, but not in the United States, but in Canada, it's still a big hit. And of course, also there is Kwanzaa, the beginning of Kwanzaa, the African holiday which celebrates African heritage and virtue and roots, created in the United States in the 1960s. As a way for African Americans to continue to celebrate their ancient traditions and connections to the African continent. So a couple of holidays starting today. The holiday season keeps going. Christmas, like I said, lasts for about 12 days, about a 2-week period of Christmas that started on Christmas Eve and now is into the third day of Christmas. So I hope everybody had a really wonderful Christmas yesterday and is continuing to celebrate. And welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. I can't see the chat yet because I'm picking a nice background. That's not the background I want, but good to see everybody. And yeah, please like and subscribe. Drop a topic, question, or comment into the chat that you would like me to discuss about any particular historical topic. This is our usual Q&A, so we will be doing our usual weekend programming. Today just started right after 6 p.m. And then tomorrow we'll be at 6 again. And then Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern, I will be lecturing about James Monroe, a live stream lecture I'm really looking forward to that I have put off for quite some time. So please join us then. Really, really looking forward to it. And since today is Boxing Day, we'll have that nice background, although that's not quite historical enough for me. Here we are. The Good King Wenceslas in the Christmas season is in the background. He has joined the chat. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. We've got Harry, my wonderful moderator here. It is indeed Friday, yes. Christmas came on a Thursday, and today is Friday, and it kind of blends together when you've got all the holidays and the weekend together, but yeah. Hello, Faraz, good to see you. Listen, in last live things got weird. Just wanted to make sure that you know that yes, of course. Kara, love you too. I am a history teacher whenever I'm here answering questions about history and social sciences, and as I suspected, I was right all along. Yes, the British love to do horse racing on Boxing Day. Oh, is that between Faraz and Harry, or is that between me and Faraz? Let's see. Can I get a better background? I love this background of Good King Wenceslas, the Polish king who inspired the famous song. But let me see. Maybe I can get something a little bit better. Oh, here we go. This is wonderful. This is a family celebrating Christmas in Victorian England in the middle of the 19th century. Christmas trees were made popular in Victorian England, as was the celebration of Christmas, not just by Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, which talks about mistletoe, holly, all of these things that became quite common, as well as eating goose and popular trends. Christmas was kind of on the up and up in Dickens' day. It was kind of a new latest fashion and trend. People have been celebrating the birth of Christ for as long as the Christian church had existed. But this was the time when the celebrations and the modern traditions of gift giving and candles and lights on the tree become more commonplace. And part of the reason they become commonplace in Great Britain is because of the Germans. The Germans have been celebrating Christmas using Christmas trees for centuries, and eventually, which actually predates all the way back to the pagans, but was re-emphasized by Martin Luther during the Protestant Reformation as a way to distinguish Protestant celebrations of Christmas from that of Catholic traditions. So Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha marries a German princess, Victoria, who is actually the Queen of England. And in their marriage, she is the Queen of Great Britain at this time. He brings the tradition of the Christmas tree with him from Germany to Buckingham Palace, and that becomes the or Windsor. I forget which one they were living in at the time, but that becomes the standard practice for the monarchy. And like Victoria did with so many other things, she set trends a blaze that became extraordinarily popular amongst the British people, and that included lighting candles on the Christmas tree and putting lights on trees. And eventually, electric lights become commonplace during the late 19th century. So the first thing people love to do is throw them onto their Christmas trees. So the tradition of the Western idea of the Christmas tree, although beginning in Germany centuries before, really sees its modern incarnation in England, and this eventually makes its way over the seas to the United States. So a little bit of history there. Let me see. Horace is here. Harry is good here. Good to see all of you. Let me see. It was an act of union signed by both parliaments. It was because there was a personal monarchy for over a century, so it just made sense. Okay. Let me see. Well, welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. What questions do you have about history or social studies? This is an open-ended Q&A where you can get all of your questions about social sciences answered by a historian. Me, I'm not Mr. History Hefner today. I don't have my jacket on me, but I am Friendly History here to answer all of your questions. And if you want to be a Friendly Neighborhood historian, it's as easy as liking and subscribing. Yes, that easy. And if you want to be an official one, there's memberships available with early access, live updates, and all sorts of other things. We are going to be doing a members live only before the end of the year here on YouTube. We also have a very special video for members only, a reading of The Gift of the Magi, one of the most famous Christmas stories around, written by O. Henry at the turn of the 19th century, when once again Christmas was becoming very popular now in the United States. Probably one of the most famous stories about Christmas you've ever heard, about the girl and the guy who exchanged gifts in a very, very interesting, ironic way. And like most of O. Henry's stories, it comes with a very dark twist. So check that out. Check out my reading of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas and The Christmas Carol if you're still celebrating Christmas. Please be sure to do that. I have a playlist available for that. And you can also listen to my history of Christmas. Harsh, if you could put a link to a few of those videos, I think everybody would be much obliged. How do you define a historian? I define a historian as anyone who studies history, anybody who takes it upon themselves to actually learn about history and engage with it in an active manner. Now, the technical scientific term historian refers to somebody who studies historical documents, artifacts, or time periods in a systematic way and usually has a level of training that allows them to do that. I am technically a historian by trade, but I am also a popular historian in the sense that I believe everybody could be a historian who practices and studies history. Link to the History of Christmas video, link to the 'Twas the Night Before Christmas video, and a link to the Christmas Carol playlist would be nice. Thank you, Hars. Ironically, it's actually the court of St. James and St. James's Palace rather than Windsor or Buckingham, where 10,000 other residences they have. Okay, thank you. Do you agree what Harry said? Because the other day you said it in reverse. What did Harry say? What do you think about the idea that true Anglo-Saxon culture is heathenry and Christianity was cultural colonization and they should decolonize? I don't know if they should decolonize. I'm not going to make judgments on what should or shouldn't happen, but Anglo-Saxon Christianity, Anglo-Saxon culture was originally paganic, as was most of Europe, but you cannot have a development of a medieval society in England that becomes the Kingdom of England, which later becomes Great Britain. And that means the development of Welsh, Scottish, and Irish culture as well, without Christianity and the influence of first the Catholic and then later the Protestant Church. So it's hard, again, it's hard, this is the whole native debate. It's hard to say that Christianity is inherently native to any area other than Palestine, but it is, although it isn't there, Judaism is an older and more ancient religion practiced in that area. Paganism is almost completely native to almost all areas of the world. Different forms of paganism, like Norse paganism, Roman paganism, basically mythological religions and different sorts of cults that celebrated different deities that usually were responsible for one or two functions in the universe. But yeah, Christianity is so intrinsic to British culture and development of British society, you could almost say that it is indeed native to it. Oh, and Fresh is here. Great to see Fresh. Sorry that you had the flu. I'm glad you're feeling better. I had the flu last year at this time. It's a horrible time to have the flu, Hars. Let me see. Can you explain how did England take over Scotland and rename Britain? Act of Union, 1707, took over Scottish debt. Yes. I can't, it won't work. Plus I'm here to cause trouble, nothing else. I was asking Hars to put the links. When I'm out of commission and want to talk to you about history, I feel like Harry should pull his weight with linking the videos. He doesn't know how to do it. Maybe you could explain it to him. You go to my YouTube page on YouTube. You can even leave the live stream if you have to. You copy, you hit the three dots, you copy, you hit share, you copy the link, and then you come back onto the chat and put it in the chat. Anyways, I'm just explaining to my moderators how to put videos in the chat. But happy holidays. Merry Christmas to all of you who are still celebrating. Of course, Christmas for many people lasts 12 days. This is the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. My gift to you this Christmas season is to answer any questions you have about history or social sciences. Drop a topic, comment, or question in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them, and we'll be going live for the next hour or so. Yes, or you could just leave a live stream and forget the rest and lose your IQ points like Mike has clearly done over and over again. Yeah, don't be a lazy sod. Like it doesn't work. Well, it must be because you're in Britain and they have inferior internet capabilities. Now Harry's going to lecture me about how Britain has some of the best internet in the world. Anyways, questions about history or social sciences, drop them in the chat. I'm not doing German. You're going to have to put that in English. And a happy Boxing Day to you, Blue Baron. I have a couple of videos about Boxing Day. Please go check those out. I have two favorite characters in Persian history. One is Shah Abbas, who was in the Safavid dynasty at the beautiful capital of Isfahan and made beautiful images. The whole world knew him at the time. Yes, Abbas is one of the great rulers in Persian history, to be sure. Nobody talks about the Safavids, but I have a link to that video too. Oh, for goodness sakes, you are not Charlie Kirk and you are not carrying the flame on my channel. Thank you for joining us from New Orleans. We have people who join us from all over the world. But yes, actually, statistically, Britain has better Wi-Fi than the US. Clearly, because it's working so well for you right now. This is what happens when you read everything on the Telegraph. See, it's not the Guardian, it's the Telegraph. There are other terrible newspapers in Britain. I also love Khwarazmi. He was the guy who discovered algebra, and even the word algebra is an attempt to say his name. I did not know that part, but that's really cool. Hey, you're not supposed to know my name. So, anyways, questions about social sciences, history, put it in the chat. I'll be happy to answer. Have you ever dreamed about flying? No, I'm too busy. What make this game today? I don't know. Any thoughts on King Charles' affection for Islam? Which Charles are you talking about? One of the French King Charles, one of the English King Charles? Who are you referring to? That's not specific. Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down? Why is Christmas celebrated even though it's unchristian from what I understand and inaccurate biblically? Christian saints and writers in combating the Roman Empire and the pagan religions of the time, instead of citing that Mithras was born on December 25th, they would say that Jesus was born on December 25th. Early Christian writers in the 2nd and in the 3rd and 4th centuries were already saying that Jesus' birthday was indeed December 25th. Now, was it? We have no idea. I wasn't there. You weren't there. There's 364 other candidates that might very well be the day. The chances are not necessarily that high, but Christians believe that the Annunciation, when the angel Gabriel visited Mary, happened on March 25th, so 9 months to the date is December 25th. That's what a lot of Christians tend to think about that, at least ancient Christians. And of course, as Christianity sort of became the religious and social power in Europe following the fall in the vacuum of power with the Roman Empire, the reappropriation of ancient pagan holidays and celebrations like Saturnalia or the celebration of Invictus Sol, which is what the Romans would do, was a way for Christians to say you can celebrate, but you need to celebrate Jesus. And the larger the Christian population in Europe became, the more likely they were to celebrate Jesus instead of these ancient paganic holidays. So, how old am I? Guess. And by the way, my name isn't Julian. People don't know my name. Friendly history is what I usually answer to. History Hefner when I'm wearing my smoking jacket. I take both. And we are wearing formal wear today, and I thought this was Christmassy enough, or it's a native pattern though, very beautiful. Hello, please, can you say, praise Allah to combat the current Islamophobic regime? I will combat any Islamophobia I can find. You might want to sit down and watch some of my videos though, because I have gotten a lot of, I don't know what you call it, history phobia. Historical phobia from Muslims who hate what I have to say about Muhammad and the history of Islam. But, of course, bigotry has no place in any corner of our world, shouldn't have, and has no quarter on my channel. The current King Charles, so Charles III. There's a large Muslim population in Great Britain. And obviously, the British Empire has had a history of interference in the Middle East, both helping the United States and Afghanistan and Iraq, but also their own mandates, such as the Mandate of Palestine, which has become quite notorious. A lot of people don't know this, but after the Great War, what I call World War II, the British, along with the French, divided up large sections of the Middle East and administered it for decades. And believed that it was them who would determine who was best to rule over these areas because they believed the natives of that area were inferior. The Saud family eventually won out in Saudi Arabia. The British also selected the Shah regime in Iran, and of course, most notably in 1948, ended their mandate in Palestine, which led to the creation of Israel and the dispossession of the Palestinian people. So there you go. Does your love-hate relationship with Harry have roots in War of Independence? No. And I don't have a love-hate relationship with Harry. What was the importance of the history of African American spirituals and hymns in their history during their discrimination? Christianity, despite a religion that seemingly was forced on African Americans by their enslavers, was widely accepted by black slaves as a way to speak of freedom, of hope, of salvation. These messages in Christianity of deliverance, of forgiveness for sins, of an eternity of peace, are quite a great incentive to people who are suffering every day and in chains. The idea of setting the captives free that is mentioned in the Gospels resonated with African Americans. Biblical figures like Abraham and Moses, who sought deliverance, freedom, and new opportunity, would resonate heavily with them. So, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, the story of Elijah from the Old Testament who was carried away on a chariot, Go Down Moses. All of these stories are ways for them to remember that their religion is a way for them to be spiritually and free while they hope for physical freedom as well. So there was a spiritual hope in African American spirituals that became very, very popular. I'll Fly Away, one of the most popular ones, is all about dying, basically, and being able to get the heck away from being a slave. Which obviously should hammer idiots on the far right who think that slaves were actually enjoying themselves. Most of them weren't, because people don't like that. There's something intrinsic about us that wants us to be free. And even if we can't be free physically, we will find ways to be free spiritually or mentally. Let me see here. Always curious to what AI knows about a certain subject. Well, I'm not AI, but I give answer. But if you think my answers are as good as AI's, then I take that as a compliment that I can give such comprehensive information. However, I actually offer substance. Yeah. Let me see. Can we talk a little bit about the 1960s counterculture and hippies? The vast majority of people didn't participate in the 1960s counterculture, but there were protests and riots in the late 1960s all over the world, in China, in Mexico City, in Paris. People protesting the Vietnam War, but also protesting the conservative order that was kind of created and have been held on to since the end of the last World War. And that started to teeter and fall apart at that time as this younger generation was kind of finding their place in the world. And the biggest culprit and pointed finger was against the United States and its actions in Vietnam. The established older generation that thought that seemingly could do no wrong had seemingly gone way off course with the Vietnam War, and young people weren't having it anymore. They weren't just going to accept the narratives that had been fed to them their entire lives. This led to a development of a lot of people embracing rock and folk music, dropping out of society, wearing their hair long, especially men, growing beards. That's almost always men, and just kind of not all of them lived on communes and embraced free love. It's a spectrum of behaviors that you're willing to engage in for the hippie culture. But the vast majority of people weren't full-blown countercultural hippies. Some of them were just kind of dipping their fingers in music or culture or political beliefs. So, let me see. Yeshua was born when barn animals were roaming outside at night. Midwinter, farm animals stay inside the barn. Israel is in a completely different climate than the United States. Sorry. It's very, very possible there were animals out in fields. How Islam saved the West. Islam did no such thing. Are you talking about how the French saved the West from Islam, or how the Polish did it, or how Lepanto did it? Because that happened. So yeah. Can you explain quantum mechanics real quick? Sure. I don't understand it. You don't understand it. And if you ever study it, you'll understand just how much you don't understand. So, who was their enslavers? Who was whose enslavers? Are you saying that you hate the UK? I love the UK. I love British history. I love a lot about history with the British. Can you explain why Spanish aren't considered slave traders to the mass public like the British are? Because the British created a massive empire bent on the oppression of minority groups. The British created the United States, Canada, Australia, all places that benefited from slave labor. So, but yes, there were more slaves sent to Brazil, controlled by the Portuguese, or to the Spanish colonies in the New World than ever were sent to the 13 colonies. Islam made it possible for Jews to practice their religion. Yes, in many places this is true. A lot of people don't focus on the religious tolerance of Islam, especially in the medieval period. They were actually two different Bibles. There was a Bible for black people that didn't have Exodus, and then there was a white person Bible because that They didn't want them to think about escaping. I'm not sure that's true. That's why every single country that isn't mainly Christians are fleeing to Christian countries. I don't know what you mean by that. Is it true that there were far more African slaves in Colombia than the United States? Proportional to their population, yes, but by the time of the Civil War, the United States had 4 million slaves. But were sent and shipped to these areas? Yes, there were more slaves shipped and sent to South America than to North America. Algebra was originally Al-Khwarizmi. Over time, it became Al-Khwarizm, and then algebra, I think even algorithm. Yes, they did. What do you think the most sane version of the left and right are? The version easiest to talk with, in my opinion, I'd say progressives and Reaganites. What do I think of the most? I mean, the left and the right are dominated today by the most. I don't like to talk about politics that much. I'd rather get a super chat to answer this question. But since you're a moderator, I'll answer it. The truth of the matter is that politics on the left and on the right is dominated by people who are loud and insane, basically. When I think of the political spectrum and who do I see as being most reasonable, I think that traditional conservatives and libertarians, if you want to group them together in this one, would be the easiest people on the right to talk to. Traditional classic liberals on the left are the ones that you probably would have the easiest time. Neoliberals would be the easiest to talk to. I don't see progressives or Antifa. I don't see the new right, the new right, which is basically just this America First nonsense, which has thrown MAGA out with the bathwater, and MAGA itself. I don't find them to be particularly rational, especially when you introduce history like I do and say, hey, actually this doesn't work. The UK does not have freedom of speech. Do you think since the 1960s hippies destroyed America? I don't think the hippies had as much influence as we think they do. I think it's just people wanting to look back on fashion and cultural trends and broad brush stroke the decade. No, it has freedom of expression. Freedom of expression is not as important as freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is more important than freedom of expression. And I believe, and I'm a free speech absolutist. This channel is a free speech absolutist platform. Every week, once a week usually, I go through all of the nasty, banned, reported comments on the channel, and I approve them so that people can see them. Bring horrible ideas, terrible sentiments, and yes, racial slurs to the limelight. Let people see what people actually believe. That's how you destroy bad ideas, not by censoring them. So, preservation and transmission of knowledge during the European Dark Ages, Islamic civilization acted as a bridge between antiquity and the Renaissance. Well, that's what AI would tell you. That sounds like you copied and pasted that from AI. But yes, there are plenty of things that Islamic culture during the golden age of Islam produced in science, in philosophy, in culture, in creating a cosmopolitan society that was generally tolerant and accepting of different people of different backgrounds. Yes, Islam had that in droves during the 9th and 10th centuries. That died out by the time the Crusades arrived and has not really gone back. The Ottomans and Safavids and Mughals had their own cosmopolitan periods of brilliance and beauty during the early modern period. There are many places and parts of Islamic history that are quite beautiful and fascinating to see the development of culture and ideas when Islam is not restricted by more radical elements. Let me see here. CIA, Israel, what's going on there? Not as much as you think. Do presidents even matter? Sure. Thank you for blackpilling, though. In the United States, what was the global impact of the neoconservative era and how did it change American politics? Neoconservatism is something that gets a bad rap right now. The people of the 1970s and 80s who promoted it didn't know what it was called. Neoconservatism is basically the idea that America has the best society in the world, and it would be a shame if the other parts of the world did not get to experience it. It believes in interventionism, it believes in American exceptionalism, it is conservative economically, it embraces capitalistic principles, and I think Ronald Reagan is probably the archetype of what a neoconservative was, and many people believe that the neocons of today are watered down washouts of that if they are on the right. But basically, Reagan did something quite formidable, whatever you think of his presidency, that very few presidents can do. FDR does. If you are a great president or considered to be one of the most impactful presidents, if you don't like Reagan, you can say impactful, understand that if you change the political landscape so much so that you shift the direction of the country's Overton window, its political foundations, in your 2 terms or 1 term, then you are probably either a great president or an extremely impactful one. And politics is always changing. But Washington did this, Lincoln did this, FDR certainly did this, made the country far more liberal, far more interested in government intervention than it ever had been. Reagan brought conservatism back into the foray, where the Republican Party went from being a moderate party to being the party of the right. And what's significant about that to me is that Reagan, that right-wing politics was kind of off a map. And in Europe, the right is basically moderate Democrats or liberal Republicans in the United States. Reagan created the strongest coalition of conservative thinking in the world at the time, and it still exists in some parts, although it has been changed. So neoconservatism is a huge shift rightward in American political dynamics during the 1980s. The Wilhelm Gustloff. I don't even know about that, RM, so you're going to have to tell me. Islam did not save the West. The canon of medicine by Avinci ibn Sina remained the standard in... Yes, that's true. Everybody knows that the Islamic Golden Age was quite prolific in what they were able to produce, and the incredible contributions to medicine, science, mathematics. The creation of algebra and algorithms is named after one Persian scholar who was of the Muslim court of the Abbasids. You also have Averroes. You have Maimonides feeling it is better to live under the Muslims than the Christians. Do you love African American history? Absolutely. I love all types of history. South American slavery, 1400 to 1500. South America at that point was not colonized by the Europeans. So if you want to talk about European colonization, Europeans would usually bring over slaves because native populations died off from diseases, and so they weren't as easy to enslave and get continued productivity from. But slaves from Africa were brought in what's called the Middle Passage of a triangle trade between Africa and the Americas and Europe, and they were put to work usually in silver mines or gold mines in Central and South America. The Incas were the predominant empire in Western South America, London, during the early 16th century, before they were destroyed by Francisco Pizarro and the Spanish. And like many other native groups, they relied on slave power and on controlling their enemies. Let me see. That's the Slavic Bible, and it's true. I don't know what you mean. The Silk Road. Islam facilitated the transfer of critical inventions from China, such as paper, the compass, and gunpowder to the West. Except that the Silk Road predates Islam. The Romans were using the Silk Road. The Byzantines were using the Silk Road. The Silk Road was, yes, the Muslims used it, and used it quite well, but it was not created by the Muslims. And the Silk Road is not one contiguous road. It is a series of different roads in different areas stretching from China all the way to Afghanistan and to the Middle East. Let me see here. In what way is Britain an embarrassment? I have no idea. Oh boy, here we go. Someone's getting Harry mad. Let me see here. I will try to catch up with the chat, by the way, I promise. Then why aren't Spanish criticized for slave trade? They are. The Europeans are heavily criticized for slave trade, colonization, and imperialism. Let me see here. Agricultural innovation. You're just copying and pasting stuff from Google AI. And I'm just explaining to you that, yes, while I agree with this, I didn't say anything that proved your point. So why are you wasting your time, Ray? Islamic civilizations introduced new irrigation techniques and crops like sugar, cotton, and citrus to Europe, which transformed its agricultural economy. Yes, cotton, yes. The Europeans were importing cotton from Saudi Arabia. That's why they built giant plantations in Saudi Arabia and enslaved the Arabians. Oh wait, I'm sorry, they enslaved Africans to work plantations in America because the America is where they got cotton and sugar from, and by the Americas, I should say. And the Muslims, by the way, the Arabs that you are talking so fondly of, are the ones who started that slave trade that is so notorious right now. So if the Spanish deserve criticism, then so do the Arabs. I love your content so much. Literally makes my day every time I see you go live. I wish there were more LGBTQ streams such as yourself to support the community. Anytime, Big Ben. Not a phallic name at all. Why did the Dutch elite transfer their wealth to England when William of Orange became King of England? He kind of just graduated from being the Prince of Orange to the King of England. And the Dutch had a far more republican form of government than the British, even the British did at the time. And so princes had more militaristic authority than political authority. I tried being a Democrat and liberal, but my head just wouldn't, oh geez. The slave Bible, the Barbados Bible, was 3/4 redacted in the Old Testament and 1/5 redacted in the New Testament. Interesting. I'll have to read that. I mean, those 3,000 people were arrested for needlessly insulting people and things of that nature. No one should be arrested for needlessly insulting someone. but that's just my opinion, and I mean, I don't know anything about how free speech is, how in history people curtail free speech, and what that actually means in the long run for rights, and how if they're curtailing their free speech one day, they could be curtailing your free speech the next day, and what's offensive here is offensive the next day, and how people just disappear. I mean, George Orwell called the BBC the Ministry of Truth. He said he based the Ministry of Truth on the BBC. So there you go. Yeah. Yes, I do. I know I'm clashing badly, but I have black pants on, so it works with this tie. Let me see. Can we drink the bathwater and put the baby in the fridge? Only if he has a blanket on him. Respectfully, I wouldn't want freedoms like the U.S. I'd much rather not have the guns in the school shootings. Get rid of all the psychotherapeutic drugs, and you won't have any of it. Let me see. And a very, very happy holiday to you, Juniper. A Merry Christmas. And by the way, Juniper is a member. That's why she has the emoji of Nicholas I. So please become a member. You can get a cool emoji like that, early access, and you can listen to me read you The Gift of the Magi this Christmas. And Biznach, I love you being on the channel. UK does have freedom of speech. It's just been repressed. You mean repressed? Let me see here. Let me see. I'd rather not have freedom of speech, but have freedom of expression so that you don't get people going around and needlessly being... Yeah, except it's not the government's job, in my opinion, to make sure people behave themselves. It's not anyone's job except that person themselves, and they should deal with social consequences. So, and again, the problem I have with the whole free speech debate is how long is it until what you say is offensive and then you're thrown in jail? It can't be that long. This is a spectrum, by the way. Tell us the history of the beginning of the money. Paper money was invented by the Song dynasty, banknotes, so they wouldn't devalue their bronze currency, their bronze coinage in the 11th century. So yeah, Song, China invented it, but currency of coinage had existed since the ancient world for thousands of years. Of course, the vast majority of humans throughout history used bartering, but paper currency is established by the Chinese. A central banking system is established by the British, I think, in the 18th century. And of course, the United States gets the Federal Reserve in 1913, forever paralyzing libertarians to their chairs while they scream internally for some stupid reason. If being a historian was banned, would you still try to be a historian? Yes. I'm studying history. That makes me a historian. Is this the Scientology live stream? No, this is Patrick. I believe we were dealing with the tails of a political bell curve as they get disproportionate effect. Yes, true. I think Islamic civilization is like a mirror of groups, and that's kind of interesting. Well, yeah, and Islam is a very diverse religion, so that makes sense. As the so-called fighting words are not protected by the Constitution. Yeah, trying to get somebody into violent matters and to hurt someone is not usually protected and can be physically dangerous. There's also hate speech laws in the United States for some stupid reason. Sorry, Harry, you're dealing with a free speech absolutist. I think everyone should be allowed to say basically whatever they want. Again, I go through this channel's comments once a week. I read horrible things from people, terrible things about me, and I just say, okay, you're approved, because I don't care. If you're on my channel and you see a comment that's offensive or racist or hateful or says horrible things about me or insults the other political party for some weird reason, even though my video had nothing to do with politics, or just has the worst vile thing on it, don't report it. Don't report it. I know that's hardcore, but that person is hiding behind the mirror of the internet to mask for their insecurities, and that's why they're saying horrible things. Shine the light on the ant, and hopefully that person will delete their own comment. Let me see. There isn't total freedom of speech. You just admitted it. Well, inciting violence and saying mean things is not the same thing. I think that and actually I would almost go so far as to say that the freedom of speech needs to be even more. I'd be even more of a free speech absolutist than I am now. So yeah. So Harry, I don't care. How's that economy doing with the Polish catching up to you guys? I'm an Anglican on both sides, 450 plus years. I genuinely say that the golden age of Islam gave us a lot in maths and so forth. I'm not piffy to deny it. No, yeah, you can't deny it. It's just part of history. I know all religions can become radical. Muslims and Christians alike can become fanatical and do stupid things. Christians quickly forget that. I don't know what you're saying, Juniper, that the baby Jesus was the story because of the three wise men who were associated with Zoroastrianism as magi. They were astrologers and they're part of the Christian story. Absolutely. Let me see. Why don't you think George Bush was not an underrated president? Economy tanked, two wars that didn't work well, and an inability to handle the medical crises of his administration that eventually led to the creation of the ACA under the next presidency, became completely out of touch, way too deep, waded way too deep into the Middle East, and basically had this American superiority complex that led to nothing but problems and embarrassment for the West. And many of the reasons why there is a refugee crisis, which white and European people complain about way too much, is because of people like President George W. Bush. The West destabilized these areas and caused the refugee crises that we now see, which lead to cultural clashes, which lead to all sorts of people complaining, which leads to Tommy Robinson doing Tommy Robinson things and Nick Fuentes doing Nick Fuentes things. We wouldn't have that to deal with if we didn't have someone like George W. Bush destabilizing the Middle East and then setting a precedent that it's okay to keep doing that. Now, Bush wasn't the first president to do this. The United States has destabilized governments for a century. The first president to really do this in the Middle East and not understand the weight of what he was doing and then get bit in the butt for it was Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter had the same stupid idea in the Middle East that George W. Bush did. Basically, the idea is if we be nice and if we show them how good America is, they will stop being how they have been for thousands of years and follow our example. Jimmy Carter knew nothing about foreign policy. I'm sorry, he didn't. And Sadat, and now you can mention the treaty between Sadat and Begin that led Israel to give up the Sinai and then got Sadat killed, and that's a plus. That's probably Carter's greatest achievement. But when it came to understanding how the Middle East worked and how foreign policy works, Jimmy Carter was a preacher from Georgia. That's it. That's all he was. Sorry. I have a lot of respect for the man. I'm not just going to hate on Jimmy Carter. But George W. Bush probably did even more damage with what he did. And then Barack Obama followed it with the Arab Spring. And I'm just looking at these things from 15 years later. It's hard to make historical legacy judgments just based on that, but they weren't good. The alternative is, it's a difficult choice, but the alternative of Saddam remaining in power or Gaddafi remaining in power probably doesn't lead to heavy refugee crises and all of the problems in the Middle East that we have today. So, I'm a neoconservative Reaganite. I think it's pretty clear to you, friendly history. Yes. Thank you for being a sane right-winger. What up, Samuel? Great to see you. If it harms a minority to benefit from the majority, is it worth it? If it harms a minority to benefit the majority, is it worth it? Well, that's utilitarianism. I don't know. Philosophy is fascinating to me, but I can't make a moral judgment on that. I am indeed a historian, but so is anybody who comes to this channel, engages with the material, and if you want to be a friendly neighborhood historian, you can like and subscribe. If you want to be an official one, you can become a member and get early access to all sorts of great content. Let me see here. Wilhelm Gaussliff, a German ship torpedoed by a Soviet submarine while evacuating civilians, resulting in approximately 9,400 deaths, making it the deadliest single maritime disaster. I didn't know about that. Thank you for sharing that. Nobody talks about, excuse me, and thank you for sharing that because I was just having this conversation with someone on the channel earlier. By the way, if you ever want to get into a deep conversation with me, email me. Don't make a stream on, don't make a thread, but email me on friendlyneighborhoodhistory@gmail.com. I was just talking to somebody on the channel about how a lot of people, and they were saying, I made a video about Japanese war crimes during World War III, which you call World War II, and how Hideki Tojo was executed for them, and how awful the Japanese had been at Nanjing and the Unit 731, what they did to the Chinese prisoner of wars, and of course at the death marches of Bataan, and what they did in China and what they did throughout the Pacific Islands. It's just horrendous what the Japanese did. We don't talk about that because we focus on the Holocaust, because that's a much bigger genocide, and we focus on what happened in Europe a lot more, and that's a Western lens that's really, really, not useful in the long term. But one thing that I find interesting, and the person said, well, you didn't mention Dresden, and you didn't mention and I'm like, everybody who knows a little bit of history about that war knows about Dresden. It's thrown into the faces of Westerners all the time that Dresden was bad. Yes, Dresden was terribly bad. Just ask Candace Owens. It's one thing she's right about. Dresden was bad. But people don't know that the Soviet Union committed despicable war crimes going westward towards Germany, and that Germans were actually fleeing westward, running into the arms of Allied soldiers to avoid the Soviets. And I didn't know about Gustloff and how they killed 9,400 civilians, probably with very little compunction. What they did in Romania is some of the worst atrocities. What they did to the women of Eastern Europe in Hungary is it's what the Chinese did at Nanjing, basically. Nanjing, I should say. We don't talk about it, but we should. Because it's important, because it's history. Thank you for sharing that, RM. Really appreciate it. Can you think of a hot take on Persian history? The Safavid dynasty is the greatest Islamic empire. You're welcome. What do you call the stuff in the Book of Enoch? Isn't that the story of giants from the Bible? Let me see here. More accurate to say Arabs instead of Muslims. No, it's not. Emir, thank you for the super chat. Historian, hope your Christmas was good. And chat, same. Likewise. Merry Christmas to you, and Merry Christmas to all of you. Was Christianity spread for violence? Yes, many times. Many of the European leaders who converted Christianity, like Clovis in France, for instance, the king of the Franks, forced his people to become Christian. Vladimir in Kievan Rus forced them to become Eastern Orthodox Christians. Oh yes, Christianity was spread by the sword, no doubt about it. Not in its earliest days, because it had no political power, but when a religion has political power, it can often spread by the sword. Hinduism can be quite violent. Judaism is the religion that I don't see a lot of that happening in. It's not an evangelistic religion the way Christianity and Islam is. I will say Christianity, the vast majority of people who have become Christians have become so willingly. Hello, Frog, great to see you. Texas just banned their 10 Commandments, made it illegal to honor the laws. I'm curious how would Christians feel if they were told they can no longer allowed to honor their laws. Well, the 10 Commandments are the Christian laws, and people believed it was violating the Establishment of Religion clause from the Constitution, so that's why, because it's not, the government cannot establish one religion over another. Why do both American political parties currently approve so much spending and debt? Because money, contractors, corporate sponsors, friends, kickbacks, TARP, pork, all of this stuff that they call. Now, if you want an actual explanation beyond the cynicism, there's the fact that they feel that the programs are worth spending for. It's worth it to have an over-bloated military. It's worth it to have an over-bloated welfare state. That's basically the argument. Let me see. Yes, VOC, Amsterdam slave trade. Yes, that's true. The Dutch East India Company committed a lot of horrible acts, as did the British East India Company. Let me see. Do most Americans take the short bus? I don't know what you mean by that. My friend Cooper once told me that since the civil rights, why are people deleting chats everywhere? Okay. America has kicked racism out, and after that, it just became a dangerous myth. What do you think of what Connor said? Your friend Connor's, nah, Americans are still very racist. There's still plenty of racism in America. And it's the cost, perhaps, of a heterogeneous society. You know who's not very racist? The Japanese. Do you know who's extremely homogeneous? The Japanese. The Japanese have some of the tightest immigration policies in the world. They're an extremely homogeneous culture, and they don't have large numbers of people of African descent or Asian or other Asian, well, somewhat, but or of white descent living in their country. Sadly, almost all cultures engage in slavery, which is still ongoing to this day. That's true. And very few cultures actively sought to end slavery. Islam is one of them. Islam says Muslims cannot be enslaved. So an incentive to become a Muslim during the medieval period is that you don't become a slave. However, Sunnis enslave Shiites all the time because they're not real Muslims. Aluda Equino, the famous slave who became a writer, I believe he was freed, I'm trying to remember, wrote about slave experiences early on. I mean, mid-18th century. I think I've got it right. Do white South Africans have a legitimate claim to the land? Oh boy, here we go. Probably not, no. Yeah, and the BBC, well, the BBC is getting sued by the American president. We do a panel about this every day. Join us sometime. Sure. America is not a civilized country. I can attest to that. The Roman Empire had some awesome uniforms. Oh, they certainly did. I love the standard bearer and the SPQR. Protecting the standard was what they wanted. And the fasce, which was the axe with the sticks holding all braced together, inspired the term fascism. If you make a membership just for me with a Ronald Reagan sticker, I'll become a member. That'd be fun. I should do that. He's a pretty likable historical figure. Do white South Africans have, I already answered that. Let me see here. The WIC was a trading company established by the Netherlands in 1621 to facilitate colonial endeavors in the Americas and safeguard Dutch interest against Spanish and Portuguese dominance. Ray, let go of the command, let go of the C, and let go of the V. You're here to learn, not to tell me something I already know about just because you have you're self-conscious about Islam and its horrible history of enslaving other peoples. So you have to do stupid whataboutism because Christians did it too. Did I ever say this is a Christian channel? Did I ever say it's a Western European channel where I'm just going to defend everything white Western Europeans have done? Nobody talks about it more than I do. Nobody is more tired of talking about it than I do. Western Europeans did horrible, atrocious things to other races in far greater number than any other civilization or society. The oppression of Europeans in the Americas, in Canada, the United States, Australia, and by the different empires, British, French, and German, was greater than any other civilization or society in history. Fact. Absolute fact. It was disproportionate because of the technological access to these lands the Europeans had. The reason they were so oppressive isn't because of anything to do with whiteness or Europeanness or Christianity, but because they had the technological means to actually destroy or to oppress large numbers of people. The Chinese would have done it too if they had gotten to it. The Muslims were trying to do it, just didn't have the technological superiority the Europeans eventually ended up developing, especially after the Industrial Revolution. Ray, move on. Can you perhaps explain the Persian Gulf War in simple? Sure. Saddam Hussein believes it's his right to annex Kuwait and get the land there. I just noticed I'm not using my microphone today. How do I sound? Do I sound good? I don't know if I sound any good without my microphone. But the Persian Gulf, I know I forgot something. I have my lighting, but not my microphone. I'm getting a new microphone, nice retro 40s one. I'm really looking forward to this. All the money that you give to the channel, by the way, goes back into the channel so I can make this as great as possible. Persian Gulf War, Saddam Hussein attacks Kuwait, 1990. It's called Operation Desert Storm. NATO, and led by the United States, basically push him out of Kuwait because he wants the oil. And they almost topple his government. It's a huge victory for the United States, their first major military conflict pretty much at the end of the Cold War. Please give your views on post-Republican Christmas in Britain, post-Oliver Cromwell. I mean, you see the development of Christmas traditions from Germany through the Christmas tree, Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Dickens puts Christmas on the map in a bigger way than ever. Of course, the Puritans that he's referring to as good Calvinists, especially at that time, did not celebrate Christmas. Do you believe in jail, prison as a punishment? Yes. People are like cowboys, but they'll be facing off a wall when we win the next Super Bowl. Oh, people are like, oh, Cowboys suck. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were a Cowboys fan. I thought you lived in reality. Hello, Emir. I'm so glad that you're here. What part of the transatlantic slave trade was made illegal during the Reconstruction era in the United States of America? They had already banned it in the United States for about 60 years. Thank you, Evil. You're very nice. Let me see. I wasn't arguing with you about free speech laws. Oh, well, too bad. Anyways, was Muhammad's wife actually 6, or is that an issue of people having different ways to count age? It could be, but she was at least 6, maybe 7, and I shouldn't have done that. But she got married to him when she was 9, or he claimed her when she was 6, married her when she was 9, consummated it around that time. It's quite disturbing. And as I said on the last live stream when I talked about this, a video I put up on TikTok, the Virgin Mary is probably 13. So, let me see. Let me see. Is this AI? No, this is Patrick. Yeah, let me see. Going through the chat. I hate George W. Bush because he made my favorite prime minister hated. Well, Tony Blair did enough to make himself hated. Tommy Robinson and Nick Fuentes should be in jail. See, that's where the nonsense starts for me. I think, I don't know about Tommy Robinson. Let's not talk about him. I've spent a lot of time talking about how Nick Fuentes doesn't know anything about history. People like him are just brain rotting our society. But they shouldn't be in jail for believing simply horrible things. People should not be in prison for believing horrible things. I also think the freedom of speech goes both ways. We are not allowed to scream out fire in the middle of a dark, crowded movie theater when there's no fire and cause panic is wrong. Georgism is only the best tax. I don't know what you mean. Let me see. I'm trying to catch up to the chat. I'm sorry if I haven't answered. Please like and subscribe. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. As I suspected, I was right all along. I think he was a brilliant person with a brilliant personality. I mean, the guy was building houses. Yeah, Jimmy Carter is an amazing humanitarian. No doubt about it. Thank you for liking and subbing, Ray. Gotta go. Thank you, London. Great to have you here. Take care. Let me see. What do you think the best way to export the right ideas in schools of thoughts and beliefs, just like the American Revolution, to other countries like Venezuela, if we were to do a regime change there? I don't know if it can be done. I don't know how primed. I think Venezuela and certain areas of Latin America would be easier to export democracy only because they are more primed for democratic. They have a more established democratic tradition. They have a more westernized society. The Middle East didn't have any of this. I haven't responded to your emails. I just don't like what you say. And Ray, thank you for joining us from Holland. Gavin, thank you for joining us from Germany. Let me see. This guy looks like a Fortnite kid that grew into an adult but never changed his way of life. Yep, it's #1 victory royale. We're about to get down. He basically wants to put all black people in jail. Yeah, that's not quite what he thinks. People like him, by the way, here's just some advice to Harry and to everybody. People who have stupidly radical ideas will always go one step beyond the most radical form of them, so that when you say you believe this most radical thing, they'll say, no, I would never say that. It's what Tucker Carlson does all the time. It's aggravating, and people on the left do it too. They don't say they believe it, but they do believe it, but they believe a lesser form of it, and that's the one that they will defend and then jump around. He never said all black people should be in jail. And if you say that, you will get the groypers. No, he never said that. He never said that. See, you're mischaracterizing. You don't listen to him. I listened to his entire thing with Piers Morgan because I had to, because I care about my society. And after trembling for a while, I realized that that's the trick that he does. He doesn't want to put all black people in jail. He says around, forget the rhyme, basically be scared around most black people, which is just absurdly racist and evil. But what be even more evil is for me to say, he cannot say that anymore. I am going to play God. Guess who else put people in jail for speech, thoughts, and ideas? The Nazis, the National Socialists. The Japanese killed more Chinese than Germans killed Jews. That probably is true if you consider wartime casualties as well as civilian atrocities. China also had a much larger Chinese population than Germany did a Jewish population, so proportionally it would be interesting too. But interesting, Janelle. I don't think you are wrong. J. Neal. Yeah, very good. Hated the Russians. Yeah, well, a lot of people hated the Soviets. Okay. Islam has no place in civilized society. There are many civilized societies that existed and became civilized mainly because of Islam. Look at the Abbasids. Look at Al-Andalus and see what it was like compared to Ostrogothic Spain before it. Let me see. Do you think Safavids were the greatest? They were the Gunpowder Empire. I think they established 12 Shia Islam. They make some of the most beautiful art in the world. I think that's a golden age in Persian history, which is hard to say because Persia's had many golden ages. Christianity has caused the most genocide and war in history. Strip Christians of their citizenship and deport them. God isn't real. Religion is made up. Please evolve. It's 2025. Is it Christianity? Is it Islam? Is it people within these religions who use these religions as a way to get terrible things done? That is the debate I always have in my mind. The Apocrypha is a series of writing. An apocryphal statement is something that someone may not have said. The Apocrypha officially is a series of writings in the Bible that aren't accepted by all Christians or Jews. Do you believe Jesus is the creator? I don't share my religious views. If you want an analysis on a religious topic, give a super chat. Hello, Froggy. To catch up, I'm just going to refer all geopolitical comments to a super chat. It's because the way Judaism is structured is Jews are superior to other people, therefore they're not trying to force people into their religion, they're trying to subjugate them allegedly. Yes, that is not true, first of all. That is not true. But Judaism is not evangelistic, therefore there is not a more radical, violent component of it, although some on the far right, the ultra-Orthodox in Israel, kind of are doing that right now. If religion was real, it would be called fact, not religion. Categorical errors are categorical errors. Where do you think the current Russian invasion of Ukraine will land in history? We'll see how long it goes on for. It could be one of these endless wars that just are written about in the history books because of how long it went on. A very Merry Christmas, Professor Dark Academia. Great to see you here. The Dutch Jews were one of the most prolific slave trading groups. True. I heard but confirmed that Asians were the worst. I don't know what you mean. Do you personally believe Yeshua of Nazareth is God made flesh? You're asking religious questions to another categorical error. Give a super chat and I'll talk about the divinity of Jesus in history. I do sound like AI when I say that. Well, yeah, I never said the Japanese are not racist. I'm saying that they do not practice racism. They are not pointed out for being racist the way other societies are, partially, ironically, because they are not heterogeneous. They are not diverse. Let me see. What's a favorite Soviet fact? The Soviet Union had an admiral who was ready to commit them to war, to nuclear war. Barely held on. Let me see. Yeshua is not a name; it means salvation. Yeshua is a name that means God saves. It's an Old Testament derivative of Joshua, or New Testament. Please explain to me why Tony Blair gets it in the neck for Iraq and George W. Bush gets off. He doesn't get off. George W. Bush is one of the most hated presidents in U.S. history. Get over yourself, Harry. I believe religion, pick one, has been used to justify many of the atrocities around the world. Yes, and non-religion, and the 20th century proved that non-religion can be used to justify it. That hating God can be used to justify it as much as loving God can justify horrible actions. So, anyways. Let me see, what else? I am not an oil salesman. Let me see. I don't like Blair, but I yearn for the late 90s, early 2000s. A lot of people get nostalgia about the 90s. Interesting. War criminals. Interesting accusation. In Serbia, I don't know if I believe it, but in Serbia and Croatia, Tony Blair is a war criminal. I don't know if that counts, though. Let me see. With Iran-Iraq war, the U.S. funded both sides. Yeah, the U.S. funded both sides. Originally funded the Iraqis against the Iranians, but later during the what's called the Iran-Contra affair, in order to fund the conservatives in Nicaragua who were trying to overthrow the Sandinistas, the communists, they purchased weapons from the Iranians who had been their enemies, who were still fighting Saddam. So the U.S. double-crossed Saddam and it embarrassed itself to no end in 1987. Terrible, terrible scandal. Probably the worst moment of Reagan's presidency and life. Did you know Reagan was at the Bohemian Grove? Lots of people were. What is a more sane ideology, National Socialist or a neoconservative Reaganite? I'm not getting involved in this. Let me see. Hello from Antarctica. Wow, you must be cold. Let me see. Boomers are leading us into another war. We learn nothing from the last 24 years. We learn nothing. We learn from history that we learn nothing. We learn from history that we learn nothing from history. That's what Heigl said. Are you a Freemason? Yes, and I'm paid by APAC, by the way. Enjoy my coffee. Merry Christmas to you, Noise. Any thoughts on the Freemasons and Washington corruption? I don't think it had that much to do. Some of the founding fathers were Freemasons. It was more of a secret society where people could talk about plans and things secretly. Let me see. Do you believe Yeshua of Nazareth is the God of all creation? Again, give a super chat. I'm not going to talk about my religious views on this channel. I'm sorry, it's a history channel. And yes, there is rain at SMR. We got a storm coming in. It is pouring where I am. So maybe if I put the mic on, because mic has noise cancellation, then I will get better. But I am at 57 minutes, so maybe I'll just wrap it up here. Let me see. Got it. Let me see. Thank you, Gloria, I guess. You can ask something about history or social studies, hopefully. Thoughts on what Aman Himal's translations of ancient Greek texts? Don't know much about it, Thomas. If I don't know something, I'm just going to say. I'm not going to pretend that I'm this brilliant mind who's just going to give you some esoteric nonsense about it. I don't know anything about that. Let me see. Despite most people finding you unattractive, I want you to know you'll be okay. Don't give up. I find you attractive. Thank you. I don't remember taking a poll of most people thinking I was unattractive, but maybe I'll do that as a poll and see how people vote. Do you know the history of U.S. invasions in Nigeria? I'm assuming the one that Trump performed yesterday wasn't the first one. I'm not surprised. Excuse me. UN did not approve Iraq war. NATO are not an international mediation organization. Yes, we talked about this the other day. The UN has no power without the U.S. basically telling it what it can do. Let me see. King James, good to see you. Okay, I think I finally caught up to the chat. Thank you, Benjamin. Your honesty is reassuring. I'm not attractive, but I'm a nice guy. And I hopefully know a lot about history. Let me see. What was the real purpose of the Egyptian pyramids? Burial mounds, relic to their gods. I don't know if it was for contact with aliens. I don't think aliens built the pyramids. I am having a good day. I hope you are too, T-Shod. On the Damaria River in Guyana, the oldest Presbyterian church had a wall built to prevent black slaves from seeing white people kneel. Is this essentially capitalism at prayer? How is that capitalism? It just sounds like bigotry, racism, and chauvinism to me. It sounds like trying to keep your slaves enslaved, especially in their minds. It's very common. Why did my friend Connor? What did your friend Connor say again? King Doopy, great to see you. Let me see. What other questions do we have? We're almost 60 minutes. Where's my microphone? Did I put it in another room? I'm thinking of plugging it in for the last couple of minutes, but we are at an hour. We'll be going another hour tomorrow. Maybe we'll even do 2. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. And then Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern, live stream lecture on James Monroe, the 5th president, one of the most underrated leaders in American history. Connor said America, after civil rights, kicked racism out for good. America made a lot of strides towards racial harmony. The United States is still a very racist country. But what I was maybe saying about Japan was misconstrued. Maybe I didn't say it right. Maybe I'm wrong. Many societies in the world do not show their racial scars and problems because they're such a homogeneous society that they don't have to worry about encountering and living with and interacting in a society full of people that are different than them. Almost every European civilization that people want to say is better than the United States is more white than the United States. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but that's what people like National Socialist Harry think. So the truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, the United States still struggles with racism and still struggles with it more absurdly, more in your face, more matter-of-factly, more clearly than any other civilization in history has, except maybe the British. The reason for this is because it's so diverse. The diversity comes with everybody will see the problems. But the United States has achieved a level of diversity that would seem to indicate, and social harmony on that, although there isn't complete perfect social harmony, that would make it the envy of a society that is actually trying to be both heterogeneous and racially inclusive. So it is easy to say you are not racist when 95% of your population looks the same. Let me see. London is one of the most multi-ethnic, multiracial cities anyone can ever live in, except New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Detroit, Miami. You guys have cities. We have states that are diverse. So is Liverpool and Manchester and just... Yes, the British are very multi-ethnic. They are not as multi-ethnic as America is. Not even close. So... Let me see. Would you ever be a friend with a Nazi, or would you avoid Nazis? I would avoid Nazis. But if a Nazi wanted to come and spread their horrifying ideas on this channel, I'd let him do it. Because I have an answer. I'm ready. So, let me see. Thank you, Froggy. You are very kind. The only people concerned with racism are people that are changed colored people into people of color and thought that was a great idea. You want to represent. I like that because you want to recommend and look at the personhood of someone before you look at their color. So you put the adjective afterwards. Was it intentional for your shirt to match the background? No, actually, but it is a Christmas tree color. I guess this was the closest winter shirt I had available. What would happen if the Ottoman Empire were still ruling the world? It'd be interesting. If they meant that high the power remained, I don't think Europe becomes what it does as an industrial powerhouse. The decline of the Ottomans is commensurate with the Europeans rising in power and colonizing large areas of Africa. I don't think Britain gets Egypt, for instance. I don't think there's a Suez Canal. I don't think that the European powers rise to the heights they do, and their oppression doesn't rise to the heights it do. The Ottomans would be doing plenty of their own oppressing. Thank you very much. Good question. With the Iran-Contra affair, do you think cocaine was allowed to be trafficked in the U.S.? Of course I do. Yes. We have the numbers. It's just people don't want to actually participate, and they self-defeat, and they only... Well, the duopoly has made a lot of people unhappy. Whenever I see Harry send... let me see. Merry Christmas to you as well. The only Nazi that I know of it surviving is George Soros. There are plenty of people who have espoused Nazi ideology. When one of the leading figures on the far right, not the right, the far right, but one of the loudest voices on the right overall can say Hitler is really cool and not just get absolutely lambasted by other figures on that side of the right, then we have a problem. We've come full circle where we don't care about the Holocaust. We don't care about history anymore. Yes. Let me see. Okay. What an absolutely desperate thing to say. desperate. I don't know what's desperate. My father once told me that the Safavids ruined Iran because they brought Sharia. Even in every issue in Iran can trace back to that. What do you think of it? No. I understand why, but 12 Shia Islam under them was totally different. It was a way to legitimize their monarchy. It wasn't a way to repress women. Women, for instance, have far more rights and far more privileges, and the society is far less of a theocracy in 1955 under a Shia leader. Yes, and Iran is unfortunately occupied by Islamic extremists. So, anyways, I don't know what you're saying, Fish Guru, but basically, what he said, yeah. Well, they want attention. That's all they want. Anyways, I'm going to sign off. We've just gone over about 65 minutes, so we went 5 minutes over, but it was really, really great to talk to all of you. Please like and subscribe on your way out. Think about becoming a member or giving a super chat, but no pressure whatsoever. A very happy holidays to all of you. A Merry Christmas, a happy Boxing Day. We'll see you tomorrow for another hour of Q&A for your favorite horror books. It is one of them. Bring back the 50s and 60s Shaw. I agree with you there, Harry. And let me see. Albert Vile is the name given to a part of London which celebrates Queen Victoria's late husband. Is there a U.S. similarity? Oh, Albertville? The state of Washington, named after a U.S. president, and the capital being named after him. Lincoln, there's so many Lincolns. Lincoln, Nebraska, for instance. But Merry Christmas to you as well, William. I really appreciate that. Thank you. No one says Happy Boxing Day? Oh, except me. I just said it. Happy Boxing Day, Harry. Enjoy your National Socialism. Yes. I hope everybody takes care, and we'll see you back here tomorrow for maybe 2 hours of Q&A at 6 p.m. Eastern, same time, same place. This is the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel signing off. Take care. Have a great night. Impress your friends with some of the knowledge you've learned. And as always, love history. Bye-bye now.